How can that be a source of income?
All of you are refusing to understand a simple reality. From 2007, when there was post-election violence, a lot of people from Murang'a and other central places who used to go to Rift Valley and other places to go and look for jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities stopped going. So all those people came back to central Kenya, to Murang'a and so on. And there has been a lot of young and hopeless men there. And these are the hopeless men that cannot marry because, first of all, they have been alcoholic because they are hopeless, they can't get jobs. Those are the people that Kangata is targeting, not people like me who have 1 or 2 children. And that's why I'm insisting, you guys need to go to Murang'a, see those people who are being paid, and you understand the problem.
I think that's not the issue. But that's not the way to do it. In fact,
give us a better solution.
If you look on page 2 of the Business Daily, it's a very interesting, it actually touches this. And by the way, the former director of Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Kirere, is saying that the replacement in Central is lower than it should be. But it's a paragraph. Sorry?
What, replacement?
If you look at replacement of people in central provinces, it's lower than that's what the Kirere, the former,
at least long-term decline.
Yeah, but if you look at the paragraph there, and it's very important, about 36%.
This is page 2 of the graphic of the week.
Page 2. Yeah, where you have these people there, the labor force of the that one there.
Yeah.
There's somewhere there it says, analysts reckon that Kenya would have to left economic growth and diversify its economy in a bid to tackle the acute youth unemployment problem.
And let's reckon that Kenya would
I think if I was the governor, this is what I would be concentrating on.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll be concentrating if I was the governor. Really, to give me 6,000 because I'm poor is not here or down there.
The same money that you had promised.
Okay. Or let's ask the question, and perhaps we and Mheshimiwa is here. For you to earn, there must be productivity. You must have produced something. Literally, you have produced a baby there. but really, in terms of economic growth, what are you contributing?
Yeah, but on this issue, let me add another dimension. I think part of the reason why we think these are problems is because of the barriers that we impose by boundaries. Even globally, populations have moved to seek opportunity. And locally, populations are moving to seek opportunity. We have a huge number of people from western and maybe other parts of the country employed in central Kenya by small employers, farms, other people, because they don't have enough labor themselves. And some of these people are marrying and so on. And so there are other sources of population growth. But then one can say that will not be Murang'a in 50 years if we go at that rate. But I can say Murang'a will be what is within their boundaries. That you will get this turnover and change, that the things we are about. You will be some sort of composite, as it were. So it shouldn't, it in fact should not raise alarm in my view, because populations will move in and take advantage of it. Move out, like Professor Raki had said, and seek opportunity. And let's hope we really solve that problem long term, that people can continue to seek opportunity elsewhere. And I've seen that in my own county. We have a number of people who have people of origin, say from Central, origin from Kisii, origin from the Somali-speaking parts of the country, who have come in, set up themselves, are very successful business-wise, and consequently, they have also helped to raise the standards of living of the rest of the population. They are models, they are employers, and so on. And I think this must be something that's allowed to happen. If you want to reverse that, and you feel that you're going to that the character of your area is going to change, the character of Murang'a will not be the same, so I want you to bear children yourselves, then you try that kind of artificial incentive. It's a very complex, from an economic point of view, to work out the appropriate compensation for that lifelong commitment. I don't know how you do it, but he has thrown out 6,000. I think he'll wait to see the reaction after about a year. And probably he'll go up or go down. I think it's just, it's a palliative. It's
9 months,
a patch, just a light patch. I just think that it's a problem that is self-correcting. If we worry less about the issues of identity and so on, people will move in from other areas. They may not be people who have the same DNA as the original ones,
and that's the spirit,
but the problem will be solved.
That is the spirit of devolution.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not solely for Moranga people. You have, the liberty to actually.
So if I'm from Kakamega and I get, if I'm a girl from Kakamega and I'm in Moranga and I get a child, I will still be paid?
That's the question.
Just curious.
That's the question. Will they
I can travel there, get my
is there a proof of ID that you're from Kandara?
There are certain things
or
you are
Kangiama?
better off not saying them. Yes.
Okay, all right. Even as we're closing up on that, I wanted just to take that particular conversation with what was on Business Daily 2 days ago or yesterday. This is, when was this? This was yesterday, actually. NHIF also to allow men cover multiple wives for 500 shillings. And I think, yes, we can talk about NHIF and the way the president has been very categorical that, different tiers of salary brackets should also be paying more on HIF in the spirit of widening the bracket as well, even if you have multiple wives and people asking questions about Mpango Kado as well. Will you be paying that 500 shillings?
I think that's very good spirit. In fact, not just wives, anybody associated with you. Mpango Kando, Gashungwas, I think you should pay for them in good faith. Because you want as many people as possible to be covered by any HIF. So if you're a man of means, if you can be able to take care of all those other women, pay for their medical services.
But why should we be struggling with Mpango Kando and Gashungwa, while in Parliament I think you have had an act of polygamy really coming?
I think legally.
I think you are looking more at
legally.
Let's
hear from them.
No, Prof, legally you can only really provide for your wife, because that's what is legally contracted. That's the person who is legally contracted. But I think on the issue of the way the president wants the premiums to be increased for NHIF, I think it is the thing with NHIF is not about this one of the wives. I think I will leave it there, because even now Parliament and some institutions do provide for multiple wives. They'll cover. If you have,
yes,
even in Parliament they allow. If you have legally 2 wives.
Was there a legislation on polygamy, if I may remember, that was being steamrolled? I can't.
No, the polygamy is allowed in the country. It is not illegal.
The law allows.
The law allows.
And so if you have your papers and you're working in Parliament, you'll cover, both your wives will be covered. So it's not an issue. In most institutions, I don't think there's even in private institutions, I don't think most of them will have an issue if you can demonstrate that you have a wife.
The two wives.
Legally, yeah. But on the NHIF in general, NHIF from the time of President Moi, it's been one of the biggest cash cows. NHIF and NSF. This is areas where you collect hundreds of millions or billions of shillings every month from members. Don't look at the small amount. It's the volume of people who are members. So that money in the last few years, really, from the time of Ngilu, when she was Minister for Health, they have been toying with this idea of universal health coverage, whether that thing should become a medical insurance scheme that covers everyone. This thing has been fought for a long time by the private sector insurance companies. Also, you are aware. But I think today, more than at any other time, NHIF it's become a cash cow for private hospitals. Because what happens is, if you have a clinic anywhere in this country today, your claim to the insurance company is often exaggerated. You've seen it. It's happening everywhere. In the same way, even the private medical insurance providers are all suffering. In fact, let me tell you, like a couple of years now, several years now, only 1 or 2 of them are making profits. All these AARs and the UAPs and the Jubilees, 1 or 2 of them make profit. Most of them are making losses because the hospitals inflate. If you are going for an operation for 50,000 on cash, if it is a medical insurance card, the figure is doubled or tripled. And NHIF is suffering the same fate. And even worse, because this one, the state corporation, there's a lot of corruption in that institution. So money is being paid to clinics across this country with abundance, I'm telling you. And so increasing our premiums is not going to be a solution. I think the solution is to really restructure that thing and enhance the issue of accountability in that institution, in my view. And unless that is done, whether you double or triple or increase the premiums, will not be a solution. In my view, that's the challenge we're facing in
the whole, yes. Yeah. Okay.
I just come in on the issue of what is a household. When a man becomes polygamous, he's setting up essentially an additional household each time, except that he, in terms of each of those households, is probably only a part-time head of the household. The household should strictly be defined by a mother's children, and of course husband if he's polygamous partially, because he's only there partially. In fact, the welfare of the family depends on how that particular set operates, what assets are available to them, and so on. Now, if we don't become consistent on the definition of a household, we'll run into problems, like on the NHIF. Now, if you say household and it means husband and all those wives, you're targeting the guy, the man, and you say you have one household. No, he probably has 4, 5, or 2, whatever the number is. And the definition of a household has to come out more clearly on this, otherwise it will run losses. You are federating 5 households into one. You're saying because the guy is the husband of all of this, so it's one unit. It isn't. It isn't. They are separate units who grow to live separately, who have their own different assets, who sometimes must even be geographic distances away from each other. It's not as well, it doesn't work as well as it does in the Islamic community. If you go up to 4 wives, you probably can put them in one house, in one physical structure, or lie so in some places in Pakistan where I was familiar with, that didn't quite work out as well as people think from the outside. There are issues around it, and many men went back to a single wife also. So there are issues. It's not the issue of multiple wives, but the issue is definitional, so that we can then say a household would be that the mother then would have to become the center point of how we define a household. If we don't, then these NHIF type contributions, again, will still be, I know I have a colleague in Parliament who was really pushing for this, will still be inadequate to do it. And you can only tax the high income earners up to a certain extent. It will still perhaps not be sufficient. Lastly, on this one, in my own time when I was working outside, I lived in the US for 25 years working for the World Bank. And I found that the way they control insurance companies help to manage costs of medical care. They had this, there were specialists in costing. When you've been to hospital, your bill goes up for payment. They analyze every procedure that was taken. Why did you give these Panadols? The quantities may not be right. They question, I'm just using Panadol because I don't know some of the specifics. Yes. Why was this procedure necessary? Or if it was necessary, why was the patient in hospital more than X number of days? And in the US, many times you get a procedure which here you would be in the hospital for 7 days. You go away the following day because insurance will not pay for extra days. They think it's unnecessary. And because of the fleecing that was occurring to insurance companies. I think we are going to get it. Here, the poor are the ones who are not getting funded properly by NHIF. The well-to-do are getting even overseas payment to finance surgeries and expensive treatment. The poor, you get the cost of a bed. The cost of a bed in a local center in Nambare will probably be something like 100 shillings overnight. That's all. But you want that little extra money that the doctor, that's not being paid. So I think there is a lot that we can do to restructure that aspect of it. But let us be clear as Africans, what really is our household. The law was passed and made it open-ended. The Muslims have up to 4 wives legally at any one time. But this expansion that we allowed 4 in the law is completely open-ended. Completely open-ended. And I don't know if it were not going back in the ages. My grandfather had 16 wives. And as a person who was relatively, call it well-to-do, because he had a lot of cows and a lot of land, could have had more. But 16 wives, that's not something that's sustainable now. But the law we passed, essentially, the only challenge you have is to get registration of the marriage. If you succeed to register that marriage, it does not say there is a maximum of X. And we can't get social services such as NHIF function unless there is some control over it. Plus, Pango Kandos, we have also liberalized the law on that. The only thing you have to prove is paternity.
Right. But what was the reason behind that particular legislation?
No, because people said this is my family, you know, and if you translate my family into another word in English, you can say this is my household. It's a man we are talking to, remember?
Indeed.
This is my household. This man, you meet him in a household in geographic area X. Next time you meet him at another part of the country, it's still his household. We are letting a lot, sort of fall in between the cracks.
Bilo, I think also the question that has been broached before in some of the forums here is the fact that even for the census, especially for the Somali community, we saw that it was very controversial that this was not really the numbers on the ground. Where they're being termed. Could we give the critical or the real numbers that form the census which were there? And there has been backbears and fears. People are talking with harsh tones that you see, especially now from, could we say, the Somali community with these demographic swamping that is happening. You have 4 wives. Irungu Kangata is trying to make also women bear children. So in the near future, we'll be having a mushrooming of all this community against other communities, which I'm not saying is not bad at all. But people are saying this is the reason why also some of these census people were shocked with and were trying to tame the numbers because of demographic swamping. You want to speak to that, right? And moving forward, the sheer numbers also when it comes to vote, it seems just as we are looking at Sunak in Britain. So also Kenya should be prepared for Bilo Kero to be the president next time in this country. We will survive by getting more children. Numbers of children.
I think the issue of numbers is critical today in Kenya because resources have been pegged on numbers, and this has been done largely. Whether it is, I would say unwittingly, but whether it's done, in my view, by mostly leaders from Mount Kenya region on this 1 man, 1 shilling thing, And so as long as then people start saying that, every shilling now must depend on population and other factors are not relevant. Yesterday I had an interview on the People Daily on the upcoming boundary reviews by IBC. And this reporter wanted to know what is the take on the people from northern Kenya, because we in the populated areas in Mount Kenya, we want more seats. So I told him, look at the constitution. The issue of resources or constituencies is not only about population. There are geographical factors, there are many other factors provided for in the constitution that they have to balance in determining whether to create a constitution or whether to split another one. And this happens all over the world. This is not only in Kenya, that all the factors have to be looked at. And I gave him an example, take North Horr constituency. I told him it's more than 10 times the size of, more than at least nearly 10 times the size of central Kenya. And that's one constituency. And one MP, if he drives from Saku, which is from Marsabit town to Ileret, on Lake Turkana, that's 600 kilometers, and you're driving one constituency. It takes him more than a couple of weeks to visit, however few the people are. So sometimes you have to look at all those factors. So the issue of what they have done in India, for example, where population is an issue, and I went there. I remember when we were in the Senate Finance Committee, we realized that they capped the population thing in terms of resource allocation for the counties. They capped it to 1973 population, so that today's population is irrelevant. So whether you increase, whether you migrate, like now the last census, Kiambu said our population has increased significantly, and that's why they asked for 6 more parliamentary seats to move from 12 to 18. And so when we asked them where did these Kiambu people come from, suddenly you said you had no people are not giving birth. They said, it's migration. People move from Nairobi to Ruiru, to Juja. Said, fine. So, but what happens in those countries now is they've frozen the population at a particular area so that it doesn't become an issue for resource. As long as it remains an issue for resource, then the temptation to to do what Kangata is doing, or to increase the numbers one way or the other, will always be there. So I think, in my view, that is a matter to be addressed. The second one is, I was involved because I'm among the people who went to court when the census population outcome for 2009 for Northeastern was cancelled by the then Minister Oparanya. And it's interesting, it's common sense. You just look at the population they gave for the Somali as a tribe. They put it at 2.39 million at the time. And they said out of that, 2.32 are living in Wajir, Garissa, Mandera only. And that the rest of the country, there are only 70,000 Somalis. If that means from Moyale coming all the way to Marsabit, Isiolo, Nairobi, Kiambu, Wampi, Mombasa, Busia, and Nairobi alone, if you go to Sli, the population, of course, is close to 1 million in this town alone. So obviously there is an attempt to try and that at the time it was for security reasons. I mean, we engaged government at many levels. There's that feeling that, having a population of Somalis, which is now the 6th largest, probably going up the figure, reflecting a figure of the 3rd largest, would be a security concern. Because when you are a majority in a country, people tend to think, yes, this is inequitable. So the historical issue.
There's that visceral fear,
because so there was that fear. Otherwise, I think going forward, unless we address this issue of population really being the main factor to be considered. Even CDF now, you see them. When we started CDF in 2003, it was my parliament. Population was not the most fundamental. It was about a half, of contributing about a half. But we said, we look at other factors. There are constituencies that have no schools, that have no education. We looked at poverty, so many factors. But today, the argument in everything is numbers. Ignore everything else. So then it becomes a bit of a challenge, there's no equity. So, and if that population thing is there, I can assure you, then it's going to have, you will see more of Kangata effects in other areas. I mean, my governor in Mandera will say, anybody who gets, already they are getting about an average of 7 or 8, like in Northeastern.
Yeah.
My governor might say, anybody who gets up to 10, 12 children, mutapata pesa.
Itakuja by M-Pesa.
Wacha tupambane.
Right, it should be winding up right now.
Actually, you look at that formula. Population is just 1.8. There are other factors, and I think there is a formula they use in CRI. Agriculture gets about 12%.
In the current
That's the new one.
And that's the thing. So you're really looking at what will make, and I think this is something we probably change our mind. What will make this country be sustaining, create wealth? It's not the numbers.
Indeed.
To me, it's actually an argument probably I don't have time for. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, we should be giving a closing remarks. 30 seconds.
I think that's an interesting question about population growth. But whether we are talking about NHIF, whether we are talking about housing, whether we are talking about population growth in northern Kenya and so on, I think it's all about economics. Because at the end of the day, you want a population that has means to livelihood, people who enjoy high standards of living, people who are happy, people who have prospects for the future.
Thank you.
And I think whether in the counties, national government, whether we are sitting here, that's what we should be looking at, economic growth, but sustainably.
Thank you. All right, Gituro, your closing remarks, Professor.
Yeah, just the Proverbs 6 to 11. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, for them.
Let's plan. Let's plan in terms of, and I think really I'm hurt when you actually see a headline like this that elephants and people are dying. It's like they wake up and this happens. And I think it's important. And I go back to breaking a record again. Your soul, what is it telling you as a country, as a president, as an individual? I think that's that's the takeaway for each of us in this country.
Thank you. Right, Bonyasa Sakwa, closing remarks.
Just two things. I want to go back to the issue of getting the right skills to make public policy decisions. And I would like to appeal that we bring in more and respect more the roles of other social scientists like sociologists,
Thank you, sir.
anthropologists are very important. They underpin almost everything. And for those who don't seem to know anything about it, they can quickly say, go do engineering, don't go and study sociology. Universities should drop this, should drop that. And Professor Magoha was there, who is himself a highly acclaimed academic. But he stayed too much narrowly within his specialization, I think. If we don't do that, we shall have a vacuum. We shall be planning and acting in a vacuum. I think it's a very important area. Then lastly, this pursuit of numbers. I remember in the 70s in Nigeria, there was already a lot of problems in getting a census was the most political thing that ever happened in Nigeria. Every 4 years, whatever time towards the
even in the US last year.
Even the US last year.
Even Trump's time,
yes, trying to make a certain, you start off with a certain goal objective. So you can't count. It's even impossible to count yourself. We are going to get it to there in Kenya. And I think we are Busia or something, whatever, or Muranga is Muranga, with everybody that's within their boundary at that moment, as it were. If you don't go it that way, we shan't have a country.
Thank you. Bilo, lastly.
Yesterday I had a whole page in the Standard on an article I did on the Hustlers Fund. I'm really concerned that they have not only put in certain conditions of compulsory savings and so forth, but they'll be charging a very high amount of interest rate, contrary to, and I gave reasons why I think it shouldn't be, this thing should be free. Otherwise, it will, if it is not free, it will not achieve the intended, because we have tried with so many, the Youth Fund, the Women Enterprise Fund. Last year, they set up what they call the Beshara Kenya Fund, with a 6%, and uptake has been very low. We have tried with the credit guaranteed scheme. I mean, they've tried all those things. You see, the issue is you have people who are doing very small business and the returns are 2-3%, and you want them to start, paying taxes. They pay the loan interest. They comply with. They have no time to comply with all those. So I think they need to really review some of the so that they can address the concerns of millions of Kenyans who are trying to make ends meet.
And I think we can pick up that on next week as well with also KQ with the privatization that the president, or the unbundling of KQ, right? The split of KQ as well. We can pick up that next week as well. Thank you, gentlemen. I think I learn a lot every Thursday. So this is a free lesson for me, at least. I don't have to pay. These think tanks, I really appreciate your wealth of knowledge that you bring here every Thursday. We really do appreciate. Thank you. You've been watching Sokoni. I'll be remiss if my director may just allow me just some few seconds. We'll try and see what the international papers are saying. Finally, we begin with the Daily Mail. Leave it to me, Your Majesty. And of course, this is about the new Premier of England right now. And this is on the front page of the Daily Mail. Leave it to me, Majesty. And you can see, of course, him and the King Charles III there. We have also the Telegraph. Mistakes were made. I'll fix them. This is what he promises, Rishi Sunak. On also Sunak's crisis cabinet. Somewhat we've been going through as well with looking at the crisis cabinet right now is the same with England as well. This is an iNewspaper. We have Sunak becomes PM without a single vote cast. The Times as well still on Sunak. I'll fix mistakes vows Sunak as he brings in continuity cabinet. Also we have the Washington Post here. This is about Russia plotting a dark winter with the energy crisis. There is an interesting story in the US today about climate change as well, that climate change is worsening our health. And experts are saying they've called climate change the greatest global threat to health. Extreme heat and pollution are linked to many conditions, including asthma and heart disease. And heat kills more people than hurricanes or floods each year. I think that is something that we need to look at as well. How is it connected to health as well? Sunak confronts profound crisis, and this is about the economic crisis in the UK. Midterms are up. Of course, this is November for the US. The key races, rising and falling stars, likely results and surprises, impact on 2024 and beyond. This is November. That's when they hold their defiance in Iran. Could the feminist uprising topple the theocracy? That's a probing question. And welcome